Welcome to Game On Reactions. And Arsenal has just played Spurs, and Spurs were planning to play a bit of a party disruptor to the Arsenal train. It was going to be a memorable North London derby, and it almost was for some very dubious reasons. We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second. But first of all, let's just talk about the lineup. I think, I thought the lineup was good. Is what I've always wanted to see. I think that is our best midfield with Partey and Odegaard, with Rice in there. Havertz is a starter now. I don't think any Arsenal fan would have said that, a few, months ago. I don't know what's wrong with my color. It's not getting rare. That's it. Fix the color. Um, so Havertz is a starter. Wouldn't have thought that a couple of months ago, and yeah, you can say that he's getting full value, even though he doesn't do everything that you want him to do. But he's chipping with the goals, and I mean you can't complain, too much about that. Just looking at the City game, and they scored two goals, so I think it was just going to be postponed to another weekend to see if Arsenal can finally get ahead. But I thought Trossard was good defensively, as well. And, I think that he's deserved his place in the starting lineup in a big game like this. I think you would have said that, with Martinelli, always being a starter. But Trossard has done well, done well. This was a very different kind of game for him. It was a game that he needed to, keep, that side of Spurs very, very honest, because Son and Madison like to combine around that area, so just being able to just keep them honest and defensively, Arsenal were very, very good in the first half. I mean, Spurs were playing well. They had a lot of the ball and they had some chances, but it felt like a game that, as soon as we went one goal up, you knew that, Arsenal were not going to let it go, especially, how we've been performing away from home. We've had some very difficult games away from home. We went to Brighton, kept a clean sheet there as well. Went to Man City, kept a clean sheet. You always knew that the North London derby, very difficult to keep a clean sheet. We were almost there, almost there. Saka, star boy, you've got to say, Saka always comes up in the big games. You've got to say that. Every single big game that we have, he's scoring a goal. I'm losing count, of the big game that he scored goals in. He scored goals against Liverpool, he scored goals against Man United, he scores goals against Spurs. He had a hand in the Spurs, goal. I mean, the Arsenal goal when we played Spurs earlier on. That was a deflected, ball into the back of the net. And today he also had an assist and a goal today. So, absolutely, absolutely brilliant by Saka. And, he's very important, guys. Very, very important. Let me know in the comment section. I don't know, which other player, other than Henry, when it came to the North London derby that you always wanted to play. I think he's right up there, right? Do you agree with this? Do you think, Saka, is doing exactly what Henry was doing when we used to play Spurs? Because he absolutely shows up every time we play Spurs, and, that's an absolutely great thing. Overall, it was a good performance in the first half. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, right? Because if this game had ended in the way that, if you remember that game against Spurs where David Bentley hit that, unbelievable, shot that ended up 3-3 after we're leading by 3 goals. I think this was actually in the Emirates. I think Harry Redknapp was probably the manager of Spurs, at that time. It was absolutely, absolutely ridiculous, and it seemed like it was heading, towards that kind of game. Raya. Guys, I don't know. You need to put it in the comment section. What the heck was that all about? Listen, I think, this is one of those loan signings, right? That you have to hold your hand up and say, Yeah, but is he really the future of Arsenal? I'm hearing that, we're talking about 30 million, to pay for him. And I'm thinking to myself, if I'm paying 30 million for a goalkeeper, I don't need mental errors the way that he has been making. And listen, it might seem a little bit harsh, right? But this is the exact same reason, at least that's what we were told, why Ramsdale was no longer in this team. Ramsdale was making mental errors towards the stretch of the Premier League. Remember the game against Southampton? Remember how he gave that ball and we're down, in seconds or within a few minutes of the game? Listen, Raya was doing his best impression of that in this game. Absolutely ridiculous. Don't know what he was doing. When I look at that, ball again, and I'm thinking to myself, who was he kicking to? Who was he really kicking to? Because that blanket had Spurs players all the way. So I don't know whether he was planning to like kick it, over. I mean, it's very, very difficult. I'll probably have to watch it again, but completely unnecessary. And I think, Mikael, you just got to say, listen, right? Okay, we tried it. And this is not like Odegaard alone, right? When Odegaard came into the team, and you're thinking, well, there's something in there. I have to say, I wasn't completely convinced by Odegaard, but boy, were we wrong. But at least you were seeing something there. There were some makings, there of a player. You just never knew whether he was going to be able to start in front of Smith Rowe because Smith Rowe was the number 10 back then. But this thing with Raya, listen, I am just not, I'm not having it. You're completely on top of the game, and then what do? You give life to Spurs. Listen, that team was dead. It was 3-0 down. Going to the second half, and they were thinking, well, do you know what? This could be five. Because recent memory will say to them, so recent memory would say to Spurs, hey, listen, this team just put five, over Chelsea. So we're in danger of suffering the same fate here. And it would have been, damage limitation. But what did we do? We sparked them to life. Listen, we won the game. It was 3-2, but it shouldn't have been that nervy. I was saying that this was probably the most nervous 3-0 game, that I'd watched in a long time. And it was partly because we're playing Spurs, we're playing them away from home. And, these are the sort of games that you only need one incident to spark things for the opposition. It's what we had against, Liverpool. Remember, we're 2-0 up and cruising, and we led them back into the game last season. So I think the boys learned, fair play to the lads, they dug in, you know, really unfortunate penalty there, with Declan Rice because, I mean, he was clearly looking at the ball, didn't even know the player was, coming in, and it was a penalty. Let's be clear. But it was really unfortunate, and it would have been a shame, for that to be another way that we ended a North London derby. We did a job, which is all that we can do, right? But it feels like it might not be enough. I think they just blew the final whistle there at Nottingham Forest, and Man City just won by 2 goals. This is what I'm talking about, right? You've got a juggernaut, as Manchester City, who are just coming, absolutely coming. You win a game and you think you've got your noses in front, but there they are, and they know how to do this. They just don't lose games. How are you gonna look back at that game against Villa and be that was the one that cost us? And that will be so frustrating because you look at it every game, every season. You're thinking, oh, that game against Southampton, that game against West Ham. Could we be saying this season that game against Villa, that was the game that we could have lost it all because there's just no room for error. Timing is everything. Timing is everything. When you lose a game, is everything. You're losing a game in December. There's still about 18 games, 19 games to play. So, it's not fatal. But when you lose a game in the last 10 games of the season, it could be fatal. Liverpool are finding that out. They've lost and they've drawn. And yeah, you could pretty much say they're running out of games. Is there twists and turns? You want to hope so. But when you look at what Man City is doing week after week, you just cannot see, them, losing any more games. I don't know. I mean, Spurs, would have no incentive whatsoever, not to roll over for Man City, because right now I think they're really, really ahead behind, Aston Villa. And if they don't win their next game, that game's against Man City will be mute, right? Because there'll be no chance of them getting top four. And to be honest, players have to be fighting for something. And when there's nothing to fight for, perhaps the only thing I can say is that it might be the last game of the season at the Spurs Stadium. So which means that they might want to send up their fans, on a high. That might be the only reason why they might want to put up a big fight against Man City. But other than that, listen, you've got to just win your games. Next game is against Bournemouth at home. No mental mistakes. You make a professional performance. Bournemouth is not going to be easy. They've got good players there. Solanke is a good player. He's been banging in the goals, so it's not going to miss too many chances. I can tell you that. So, you got to rest up, forget what's happened to Man City, and just look to what's the next game. Next game against Bournemouth, do the business, and then we go to Old Trafford and see what happens. That might be it. That might be the game that, we know exactly, where we are in the title race, because I think by then, Man City would have also played their game in hand, as well, and then all that will be left to the last game of the season. And I don't know who Man City play in the last game of the season. It might be West Ham. Someone might want to correct me on that. We play Everton at home last game of the season. So, hey, if we're at that point of the season and Man City is still ahead, looking for a win at the end of the season to do it, then yeah, it looks more likely they'll do it. But anyway, let me know, what was your highlights for the game today against Spurs. For me, lineup was a take. Goalkeeper was just something else. Let me know in the comment section, what do you think, about that game, and who was your man of the match, for that game. I've got my eyes on quite a few. I think Saka, for me was just immense. Declan Rice was very, very good, up until, the penalty as well. And to be fair, I don't want to knock him for the penalty, because I think, he did well. Listen, guys, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Put, your comments in the comment section, in the chats. Let me know what you think about that North London derby. Was that the best one that you've ever seen? Was that the most convincing one in the first half? Certainly for me, I think that was one of the best North London derby we've done in the first half in a very, very long time. We almost undid it in the second half, but, less we talk about that, the better. But, you take care of yourself, and until the next video, see you later.